Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech Podcast. My guest today is Sara Bird. She's with uBiome, the letter U. The website is uBiome.com. And she told me, congratulations, that her title just changed a few weeks ago to Vice President of Product Technology. So, Sara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad to talk to you guys. I've done a lot of podcasts with microbiome-related companies, but I know uBiome is one of the oldest and biggest, so I'm glad to talk to you. Yeah. So tell me, what's the premise of uBiome, maybe when it started, and what's the premise now? What's the whole goal of the company?
Yeah. So at uBiome, our mission is to advance the science of the microbiome and make useful products to improve human life. And we, as you said, have been around since 2012, advanced products in a few different areas that, I'd love to talk about more. We've been around actually since 2012, and since that time, we have been collecting data on the human microbiome and have amassed the world's largest data set on the human microbiome, which is over 250,000 samples and counting.
Oh, wow, that's a lot. So, before we get into the specific products, what insights can you share about what you've learned about the microbiome?
Yeah, there's, so many different things that you can learn about the microbiome. As myself, a consumer of our Explore product, and someone who's, interested in, manipulating my diet and learning about the microbiome, you can really learn a lot just about how the microbiome plays a role in just how it processes the food that gets into your gut. You can also learn a lot about how the microbiome is associated with different kinds of conditions, which is something we offer on our clinical products. But getting back to, what we were founded on, we began as a citizen science company. And so the idea was, we can learn a lot about the microbiome if we have enough data to support that. And so as we collect more and more data, we get a lot more information about how the microbiome is related to different conditions, whether or not they're conditions associated with human disease or just diet and lifestyle. So through our Explore product, for example, we collect samples on not just the gut, but also genitals, skin, nose, and mouth. And through that data set, we're able to collect what we call reference ranges or healthy ranges, because in parallel, we also ask a lot of really detailed survey questions to our users. So we can ask people different questions like, what is their fitness levels? What is their current diet? What are their sleep patterns? What is their work patterns? What are their stress levels? And when we pair that metadata with the sequencing data and learn about the types of microbes in their sample, we can learn a lot more detailed information about how the microbiome changes and is associated with different states of, health, wellness, and different conditions.
So I know, some of what you learned is proprietary, but what can you disclose? What have you learned? What trends have you seen, that would be really interesting to you, or you think really helpful to people that are, considering testing the microbiome to see what it's about?
Yeah, so what we're doing a lot now on our Explore product is we're adding a lot more we call data stories. And so we have different stories related to gluten sensitivity, for example, or vitamin synthesis. And so what you can do as a Explore user is you can order a sample, or you can order a few different different kits, I should say. And you can sample your gut, or like I mentioned, another site in your body, and see how your microbiome profile changes over time and how the microbes that are related to, for example, gluten sensitivity would be affected over time. We also have stories on lactose intolerance, artificial sweeteners. So I can give you just a little bit of an example for an experiment I did on myself recently. I did a 30-day ketogenic diet. I'm personally, interested in doing a little bit of biohacking on myself when I can. So I took a Explore kit at day 0, and then again at 30 days post a ketogenic diet. And interestingly, I saw a very large spike in bacteria that are known to be found in the guts of those who consume a lot of artificial sweeteners. And before I did the ketogenic diet, I really stayed away from, diet sodas and other things. But on the ketogenic diet, you can't eat any sugar, but you do tend to throw in some artificial sweeteners here and there, or at least some people do. And so I saw a large increase in bacteria associated with artificial sweeteners. And so we have a lot of other types of stories around there. A lot of people, for example, are interested in probiotics and how those impact your gut microbiome. So, for example, if you just want to know, all right, I'm going to try out this probiotic brand that I've seen in Walgreens or somewhere off the shelf. I want to know if it's working. You can then track your gut microbiome over time and see if you can actually see those probiotics having an impact on your gut, or if they're actually showing up in your gut microbiome.
So what's the reason that most people will get your kits? Is it for the reasons you stated, or are they telling you it's other reasons, like they want to try to lose weight?
Yeah, so that's a really, really great question. So it really depends on the type of kit. So again, I'll go back to the Explorer. The Explorer user is really for health and wellness and different lifestyle factors that you're interested in learning about how these different components have an impact on your gut microbiome, or you're just interested in learning about the gut microbiome. Like I mentioned, we have a lot of stories. All the stories are rooted in science. At uBiome, we have a lot of scientists who work here, and we basically, all our research is backed by science. We try to publish as much as we can on all our products and also on all of our research that we do. And so for the Explorer user, all of our information on the gut microbiome or the other areas of the microbiome and how they are associated with different foods, they're all backed by the scientific literature. And now on the clinical side, we have 2 products. One is SmartGut, which we launched in the fall of 2016, and that focuses on chronic gut conditions such as IBD and IBS, or ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And then we also have SmartJane, which was launched in the fall of 2017. And that looks at sexually transmitted infections such as gonorrhea and chlamydia, or Mycoplasma genitalium, which is associated with infertility. And SmartJane also looks at genotypes for HPV, which the high-risk types of HPV are known to be related to cervical cancer. And then there's low-risk HPV types that are known to cause genital warts. We also look at the overall microbiome profile of the vagina and whether or not it's linked to certain conditions such as bacterial vaginosis. And so we have kind of different types of users. So for users that have maybe had chronic gut issues and they don't understand what's happening, a test like SmartGut would be right for them. They can order a kit. It's fairly convenient to use. You get your results that are sent to both your how and the patient, and you can go through the results of your doctor and understand how and why certain bacteria in your gut may be linked to conditions that you might have in your gut. And then you and your doctor can talk about different treatment paths. And the great thing about our kits is that you can use them as a monitoring tool. And so you can do longitudinal testing. So in other words, you can test your gut multiple times and see if different interventions have had an impact on the levels of the bacteria and whether or not that's affected those conditions that you had. And so I also want to emphasize that on our clinical side, our clinical tests, both SmartGut and SmartJane, are doctor-ordered insurance reimbursable tests. So you do need a doctor order for those. But on the Explorer side, which is our health and wellness tests, anyone can order those tests over the internet, and those can be sent anywhere in the world as well.
Well, all right. So people can get these tests done, and they can see a list of bacteria that they have, and the prevalence, the percentage, and all that. But then, what do they do with the information? Like if you have a doctor, what kind of a doctor helps you, and what kind of therapies have you seen recommended? I know that you guys probably can't recommend stuff, but What do people do with the info that you give them?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we definitely cannot recommend anything for our patients, but we do have a couple different approaches. So we worked very closely with our physicians and also built up our physician network and created a really comprehensive set of physician guidelines to help our doctors when prescribing this test and how to understand our results and interpret them and really have that conversation with the patient about what the next steps might be. And copies of these guidelines are available on our website. And so, we've seen our test used in a variety of different ways. We're also launching a clinical grant initiative. Our website just launched a couple weeks ago, where we are beginning to engage with more clinicians to conduct different research studies, because clinicians in different environments have patients come to them with different, complaints, or maybe they have a lot of patients who have IBD or IBS, and they want to understand what kind of interventions that they've been prescribing their patients. Are these interventions actually working? And the utility of a test like SmartGut is that the doctors can use our test to determine whether or not their treatment guidelines are being effective. So whether or not it's just taking a certain type of probiotic to try to increase the levels of the good bacteria in their gut and seeing whether or not that changes the conditions the patients have, or whether it's just changing, the overall diet or other sort of lifestyle factors. Our tests give doctors a new tool in their toolbox to help their patients that have these underlying gut conditions that they may have had for years.
You mentioned several interventions that are used by doctors, depending on the situation, obviously. But some, it sounds like, will say, "Hey, take probiotics and try to get more of a certain bacteria into you." Others may say, "Change your diet." Are there other types of interventions that you've seen that people are trying, whether they work or not? But what else are people doing to try to influence their gut bacteria?
Yeah, I think it depends on the doctor that is prescribing the test. There are all different kinds of doctors that are using SmartGut, whether it's GI doctors or internal medicine. So I can't comment too closely on what the specific recommendations are. It depends, but some of the ones that we have heard about are, just overall diet changes away from processed foods in the Western diet to diets that contain more, whole grains and whole vegetables. The literature that we do have out there supports a diet in which you have a lot of fiber. Bacteria like to digest fiber, and the good bacteria thrive in an environment that's in a high fiber diet. So that's usually one of the main recommendations for those who are having some chronic gut issues, and along with other diet changes such as trying to remove some of these processed grains, especially if someone might be thought to have a sort of gluten sensitivity or could possibly be celiac. These are the kind of changes that doctors might implement, and then again they can use the tool like SmartGut to determine whether or not these changes are having an effect.
So with all the samples that you've gathered, are you seeing any trends or interesting things or patterns evolve in people?
So one of the things that we're working on now are doing some sort of longer term clinical outcome studies. So now that we've collected lots of samples, both from SmartGut patients and SmartJane patients, along with our very large Explorer data set, we're now teasing apart the conditions and associations found within that data set and trying to bring forward some exciting publications in the coming year. We have a pretty large team that has background in bioinformatics and machine learning to be able to tease apart our data set and come up with new associations along with what's already known and being published every day in the literature. We also have a data curation team who helps us comb through the microbiome literature and learn about all the new and exciting technologies and findings in the microbiome space. So, with that approach, we are, in the pipeline coming up with some new long-term studies to get more data, and also some new publications that'll reveal some exciting new associations on the microbiome and different associations with human conditions.
All right. So what's ahead for uBiome over the next 6 months or a year? What products are you coming out
Yeah.
with, or what direction are you taking stuff?
Yeah, so there's a lot of projects that are that we've been working on and are in the pipeline. One of the big ones is a patented technology we have called precision sequencing. And so with microbiome sequencing, for years, a lot of the sequencing has relied on sequencing a single specific gene in bacteria that's very well conserved called 16S. And this has been a really great technology and technique because it allows us to determine the different bacteria that are present in a sample. And it's been really the gold standard in microbiome testing, at least beyond culture-based microbiome techniques. And so what we've done is combined 16S sequencing with metagenomic sequencing. And with metagenomic sequencing, you can sequence all of the DNA in a sample. So it's another way to not just tell you who is in your sample, but what are they doing? Because you can look at different genes. So, for example, you could identify gene in a specific bacteria for a certain kind of antibiotic resistance. And you can imagine that kind of information can be really powerful when a doctor is trying to establish what kind of treatment to give to a patient. And so with this precision sequencing, we are combining the 16S gold standard technology with this metagenomic sequencing to get a more complete picture about who is in the sample. And this goes beyond just bacteria. We can also learn about if there are different viruses or yeast or other types of fungi in a patient sample. So we're really excited about that technology that's upcoming. Another project that we've been working on that launched pretty recently, but we are actively working on this to improve it even more, is our web results for SmartGut. And so I did mention that we like to use our tests as monitoring tools and get a lot of longitudinal data. And that's where the real power in the microbiome testing comes from, is if you can monitor your own sample or your own gut over time, you can learn a lot of information about how your microbiome responds. And so when we're entering this world of precision medicine, because it's a space like the microbiome, it's so complex, it's interacting with your own, genomics and all the other environmental factors in your body. Being able to study your own microbiome over time has a lot of value. And so we've launched a feature that allows our patients to monitor the levels of the different bacteria and other targets in their gut over time. And then they can really track and learn how the different diet or other interventions that they've done have changed these levels. And so we have a really nice interface on our website that our users can use right now.
Right, and when someone orders one of your kits, how long does it take how long does it take them to get the kit? How long does it take once they send in the sample for them to get their results back?
Yeah, great question. So when they order a kit online, they can just go to ubiome.com and order one of our clinical tests, which will put them in touch with a doctor to get a clinical order, or they can order an Explore kit and order directly from our website. The kits usually arrive at their home within a few days. And then we usually recommend that you store your kit in your bathroom until you're ready to take a sample. The kits are really convenient to use. For SmartGut or for any Explore kit with a gut tube, all you have to do is take a simple swab of your toilet paper and return the swab into one of our tubes. That tube then is placed in a mailer that gets sent back to our lab within a few days. And then within 2 weeks or less, the customer will receive their results by email. All they have to do is make an account on our website. And for the clinical test, their doctor will also get a copy of their results, and they can then have a conversation with their doctor to go over their results. Then on the Explore side, there's some really exciting features where they can look at their microbiome and how it compares to other users in our large database.
I gotcha. Are there a lot of doctors that you see that are asking for a microbiome to look at it, or is it that the patients have to say, hey, take a look at this and make the doctors aware of it? What are you seeing out there?
We're seeing a little bit of both, and that's a really interesting area. And so that's one of the things looking into is the microbiome. It's not a standard of care, but it's going that way. And we have a lot of doctors who are regularly prescribing SmartGut, but then we also have, teams where on the uBiome side where we are reaching out to doctors and having these conversations and trying to understand how they might use one of our kits in their practice. And then on the patient side, we have a lot of patients and customers that are just really curious about what's going on in their bodies and like to take control of their own health. And so being able to order the kits themselves is really empowering. And even, on the Explore side, we've had users that have been using Explore for a very long time. And some of them really weren't very healthy. And so when we were able to build a clinical microbiome test, we had a lot of users switch over to becoming SmartGut customers because that gave them a lot more information about, how their gut microbiome was related to chronic gut conditions. So we see it on both sides. We see more and more doctors wanting to use microbiome data in their clinic, and a lot more patients and customers that are interested in, empowering their own health and figuring out the answers to what's going on in their bodies.
Very good. So what's the best way for people to order the kits, whether the doctor guided one or the self-explorer one?
Yeah. So if you go to ubiome.com, you can click through our product and you'll have separate landing pages for Explore as well as our clinical page. But on the clinical side, we have a very simple landing page that can guide you through the steps for how you would get a clinical test ordered and put you in touch with a doctor who can prescribe a test for you as long as you meet the correct criteria. And then on the Explore page, anyone who has access to a PayPal account or credit card can order an Explore test on our website.
Okay, well, very good. Any other ways that people can use to get in touch? I know that, I'm a subscriber and I get blog articles from you guys periodically, which are really interesting.
Yeah.
Any recommendations for people to interact or collaborate or ask questions?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out our blog. We have a lot of really exciting articles that are coming out. Our Twitter page is also pretty active and links to our blog posting. And we have a really great customer service department. So if there ever are any questions that your listeners have, they can contact them through our website.
All right, very good. Well, Sarah, thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.